we wanted to have this portion of today as sort of a very informal session, a very back and forth session, just information gathering. We know we have some people in the audience that are very familiar with the child abuse protocol and the multidisciplinary team process, which when you hear us talk about MDT, that's what we're talking about, the multidisciplinary team process. So we wanted this time to kind of be just an opportunity for you to ask questions, for us to have our law enforcement experts from Bibb County up here and to talk about that a little bit more. But first, I'd like to introduce Judge Ed Ennis is just going to have a few remarks, and then Judge Matthews.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm Ed Ennis. I'm one of the Superior Court judges. I'm not here today as a subject matter expert. I'm here because I'm the Superior Court judge who is a member of the Exchange Club. And I'm proud to be a member of the Exchange Club. I've been a member since 1978. And I'm proud of our national club and our local club's main project, which is prevention of child abuse. So naturally, I'm a big supporter of this effort today. And I'm looking forward to hearing more of the subject matter experts, some of which are seated on the stage here today. And unless Sandra wants to make further remarks about Judge Matthews, I'll introduce Judge Matthews by telling you that he is the chief judge of our juvenile court and that he is a subject matter expert. And so I'll turn the microphone over to Judge Tom Matthews at this time.
Good afternoon. I many years ago was called upon by a very nice lady who was in charge of the local PTO at a grammar school here to attend and make some remarks at the first meeting for the school year of the PTO. And so I got there early because she had not really been very specific about what she wanted me to talk about, and I asked her, "What do you want me to talk about?" And she said, "I want you to talk about what causes delinquency and how we can keep our children from becoming delinquent." And I said, you know, I'll try, but that's an awful broad topic. And I said, "How much time do I have?" She said, 5 minutes. I have here maybe even less time to talk about a subject that's extraordinarily important. All of you understand, I'm sure, that early intervention is the key to preventing bad things happening to children. If you wait until they turn 13, 14, 15 years old and they start misbehaving, you have waited 13, 14, 15 years too late. And so we're here, but we face a challenge in dealing with, in an early manner, with preventing child abuse. And that is that the law gives parents great rights. And sometimes it's even considered as constitutional rights. There are cases in the United States Supreme Court that have said you can't interfere with what parents are doing until enough bad happens that it justifies the intervention. And so that's the difficulty here. How do we intervene? How do we make notions of civility towards children make them required of parents when they don't want to be good parents? And that's, as I said, a very difficult challenge. I can only say this, that as we try to teach children to be civil, we must also teach their parents. And that as we're trying to teach their parents, we must also obey the Constitution. There was a poet years ago, W.H. Auden, wrote a poem called September 1st, 1939. And the poem, if you may recognize that date as the date that World War II started in Europe when the Nazis invaded Poland. That was the name of the poem. And the poem had one interesting little part in it that I think you'd be interested in. And it said this. I've got it in my pocket in case I forget it. But it said this: I and the public know what all school children learn, that those to whom evil is done do evil in return. That's our challenge today. And what a great crowd. I'm glad to see you. Let me make one other comment. Most of the people I see out there are women, and that's great. We need to get more men involved in this as well. It's not a women's issue. The safety and well-being of children is not a women's issue. It's an issue for all of civility, all of civilization. Thank you for being here, and I'm now going to turn it over to the panel, I suppose. And are you going to do the introductions for the panel?
Well, we've got one more little brief comment before we start with our panel and them introduce themselves. I'm going to just make them sit up there a little bit longer and feel uncomfortable. But we have Bob Brown here from the Department of Family and Children's Services, one of our, is it regional director, Bob?
Yes.
Regional director for our Department of Family and Children's Services. Just wanted to talk real briefly about the new mandated reporting for the state, and there's a new form, and so he's just going to kind of briefly tell us about that. And we do have some forms. Tanika, where are you? Tanika, where are the forms? She's got them, and we'll put those out for people to pick up samples. Because I would bet that most of us in here are what we consider mandated reporters. So,
Thank you. I'll just echo what the judges just said. This is a tremendous turnout, and I appreciate I've been here all morning, and it's been a really great program. Just briefly, the form that Sandra referred to is available electronically also, so if there's not enough there, we will send them out with all these other programs. This form is not for you to use in lieu of picking up the phone and calling us. We still need to have that robust conversation up front whenever it's possible, because that's what gives us the best information to make key decisions around what we can do with the concern you present to us. And you're all familiar with the various decision points. We are switching over, and it's still a dynamic process, still ongoing, to moving Georgia strategically to a statewide call center, not only in our OFI programs but also in our child abuse reporting. It's been rolled out on a region-by-region basis over the last several months. And Region 6, which is where I'm the regional director, it includes Bibb and 9 other counties right here that surround, right here in middle Georgia. We went live with the centralized call center for CPS reporting just last week. So it's been an ongoing, some of you may have already called in a report and kind of got a little different voice maybe you didn't recognize. But it truly is a statewide strategy to improve and make more consistent the kind of information we get from you so that we can make good decisions about how to respond to the concern you present, so that we can prioritize, triage, if you will, just like anyone that's trying to figure out what they need to do to help somebody, whether it's medicine, social work, mental health. This is our triage system. We are anticipating some issues that some challenges as the phone platforms and everything gets up to snuff to meet the demand. So they have created the form that was referred to as an intake form, that if you can't reach us by telephone, this form will have the key information, and all you have to do is fill it out. It'll be submitted via email, so it'll get a very quick attention. And what you can expect then is once you've sent that in, you've made your report, you've fulfilled your mandated reporting obligation. But a lot of times you can expect a call back from our call center to get a little more detail. So that'll be a good thing. You won't have to wait on us and not know when we're going to call back. You can make the report. Then we're kind of motivated to get back with you quickly so that we can get the information we need to assess the information you present us with. So if you can include on that form a number where you can have a good probability of being reached when the callback comes, that's what you can expect. I don't have the form with me. They're in the room. They're new. Quite honestly, I'm not going to hold one because I'd be up here longer than I need to be. But I think it's a pretty user-friendly for you to use. It's really to benefit you as we transition into a new way of taking child abuse reports in Georgia. Rest assured, every region in the state also has an identified phone number where our stakeholders, judges, everyone here really, that needs to talk to a human voice about something that's happening in Bibb County or Monroe County, and you just need to talk to somebody you know. You'll be able to call, a human will answer, and they'll be able to help get you to the person whom you're seeking. But in terms of child abuse reporting, we're going to this uniform format now. We really focus on key areas of risk and safety to kids so that we know how to gear our intervention as we go knock on that door. So it's going to be a good thing, but there may be some rocks and bumps on the road, so bear with us and use the form that's here. And that, again, I know you all want to know that you have filled your reporting obligation, and this will handle that for you. So I know we have others, so I'm going to give it back to Sandra.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. And so, again, this time was to be kind of informal, and so we came up that this was some new information that we wanted to give to you, so we wanted to pass that out along. So, without further ado, I want to introduce our esteemed Bibb County Law Enforcement Crimes Against Children Unit. We are missing a couple of people, one who couldn't be here, and I think Sheriff Davis has gotten held up with a meeting. So, but first I'm going to pass the mic to them, let them introduce themselves, tell you kind of their little background with crimes against children real quick. And then we're just going to kind of open it up. We're going to start. Dr. Head's going to kind of moderate, and we'll just open it up for some questions and kind of just see how, the process goes for those of you who may not know how the process goes once a report has been made or once a police report has been made, and then what happens with that child and with that family. Just sort of, again, all those pieces of the puzzle that we talk about, being put together and just sort of this area and how we coordinate that. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Harrell. I've been with the Bibb County Sheriff's Office for 16 years. 9 of those years have been spent working in criminal investigations. Now, since January 1st, with the consolidation with the Sheriff's Office and the Police Department, the Sheriff's Office now, we specialize in crimes now, whereas before we worked any variety of crimes, from petty thefts to armed robberies to child abuse cases. So now, with the new consolidation, we specialize in crimes against children, and that's where I currently work now.
I'm Investigator Tanya Lester. I'm also employed with the Bibb County Sheriff's Office. I've been there for 10.5 years. I am brand new to investigations, and I've only been working in crimes against children for a few months, so I think I'm the newest one up here.
I'm Investigator Jessica Layton. Now Bibb County. I was prior Macon before. I've been working crimes against children for 3 years because before Macon we did have the specialized units even before we consolidated. So that's all I did beforehand also.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Cynthia Robertson. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 22 years. I've been in criminal investigations for 5 years. And now that we are consolidated in a specialized unit, I'm the lieutenant for the division.
Can you kind of tell us about when a child discloses, what's the process once that disclosure gets to the law enforcement? What happens after that?
Normally, when a child discloses, an officer goes to the home, takes a report. The report is then transferred to the Crimes Against Children's Unit. It's given to an investigator. The investigator goes over the report, makes contact with the parent, get all the necessary information that is needed. If there is sexual abuse, then normally we set up a Crescent House interview. Each case is sort of different. It just depends on what type of case it is. But if it's sexual abuse, we'll set up an interview for the Crescent House. And normally the child is interviewed and examined at the Crescent House. And from that point on, the investigation continues.
I guess another question would be, you're passing it on to Jessica. So I'll try to give you something easy. What is the most important information that you would need for someone that is reporting an incident to you? What are the things that you need to hear that will help you to have more information for your investigation, if that makes sense?
You mean from like the child or?
For the parent. So you get information from a caregiver. We'll use that. What are the key things or the things that you need to know about that case to go forward?
I mean, really everything is. I mean, especially if you get the interview of the child, that's the main thing, those details that the child can give you, especially depending on that child's age, certain details that a 3-year-old or 5-year-old's not going to just know. You know, there's just it just depends, really. I mean, it's everything is.
Okay. So not a specific thing, but you need the whole picture.
The whole
So not
package.
just one
Right.
particular thing. Okay. Ms. Tanya, I guess another, and I know, thank you.
I would just like them to explain, because a lot of people here don't know about MDTs, and I know you have the mic and you're brand new, but Commissioner Southern can do it about how important MDT is, and what you get out of MDT, and why it's important for each discipline to be there, and how it can help your case.
Well, when I attended, I can say what I get out of MDT. I like to, I guess, listen to what, some of the things that the other investigators are dealing with and the DFACS people. And it helps me learn a lot about how DFACS works, how the GBI works, because sometimes they may come, how the other agencies work. And especially with me being brand new, there's a lot of things that I don't know how to do. And sometimes I do want to hear from just different people, how do you do it? Okay, well, how do you do it? Because everyone has their own different ways of doing things. So that's how it helps me a lot. That's what I get out of MDT. I can tell you.
So what different, I guess, agencies are at the MDT?
You'll have representatives from the district attorney's office, and it's not just one county, it's like the surrounding counties also, because we have them at the Crescent House, and I think they serve the whole middle Georgia area. I'm not sure how far up north or south they go, but we have representatives from the DA's office, from different counties, DFACS. Sometimes, like I said, the GBI will come, investigators from other agencies, medical personnel. Dr. Head is there sometimes too. So.
Is your MDT prosecution driven or some other focus?
I think it's really everybody driven, because with so many different agencies, you got the people who are going to prosecute and the people who are more concerned about getting the victims the services that they need, the social services, the anything that they need. So it comes from it's not just about prosecuting, it's about getting the victims what they need, getting the investigators what they need, and just putting our heads together and figuring out different situations.
Hi, I'm Vernona Mosley from the Hepzibah Children's Home, and I don't know whether this committee can answer this question, but you know that when we have difficulties on campus, that we call the sheriff's department, and sometimes we request that the child be considered for a YDC or DJJ placement, and we understand that there's a point system, and unless the child has enough accumulated points, you'll come out and you'll talk to them and you'll take a report, but usually you do not take them away to that facility because our children are all base, and I wondered if anybody could comment on that point system.
Well, I can comment on it. I mean, obviously, I work patrol and I answer calls at the Chepsom Children's Home and also at the Children's Home on Mumford Road. But, you know, we don't set the point system in place. And I think the main thing is to make sure that the child is going to be safe when we leave. And they make a determination on the safety of the child based on if they're going to take the child into custody or not to RYDC or wherever it may be. But we don't rate that. We don't create that scale. So we don't have a lot to do with that. We're just basically part of the system as y'all are, as mandated reporters, to do what's best for the children.
Just a follow-up question to one that the moderator put a moment ago, and it may be a stupid question because I've not seen the form that I'm about to mention, but it's the form that Bob mentioned a moment ago for mandatory reporters. For those of you, if you see those reports as a part of your initial responsibilities, is there information that you are looking for in that report? Or more precisely, is there information that you discover is missing from that report that you wish was in the report when you get it? That might be helpful to the folks who have to actually file these reports.
With DFACS, you know, obviously they're a separate agency from the sheriff's office, and you know their role is to report, you know, crimes against children to the appropriate agency, law enforcement being one of those. When we get reports from DFACS, sometimes the information is limited, but you have anonymous people calling in, and they may not have all the information that's available for that. When we get any case, what we try to do is look at the type of case, and a lot of times with child abuse cases, you know, they're time sensitive. Based on injuries to the children, as we've seen earlier, and just different things that we need to collect. So they're kind of, the DFACS is as we are, they're limited by the information that they're given, and then we have to go out and follow up on all that. So it just depends on each case.
Just a quick follow-up. Most of you probably know, legislation requires, the law requires us, every report that we take in our office, a copy, goes to law enforcement who has jurisdiction, and in Bibb County now, it's going to be the sheriff's office. So you guys actually get a lot of reports. I'm sure somebody has to screen them, though, because not all of those would rise to the level of criminal behavior. But it rises to the level of concern that we might knock on the door. So you guys, I'm sure you have somebody that screens an awful lot of reports from DFACS and probably wishes there was a lot more information than there is, but we'll do the best we can.
We do receive a lot of reports from DFACS. Right now, they previously were considered as intake reports, and that's when someone calls in and give information about child neglect or child abuse, whatever the case may be. And most of the time, they don't have a lot of information, and we end up trying to get back with DFACS or check other databases to obtain information for the families.
So I have a written question from the audience, which is good. So one of the questions was that someone wanted you to talk about the importance of not interviewing a child before coming to the Advocacy Center. And I know that you all are very good at making sure that they come, but can you talk to other people that want to do you all's job before coming to the Children's Advocacy Center?
Well, it's important not to interview the child prior. You don't want to confuse them. You don't want to lead them on. You don't give them suggestive questions. And the people at the Crescent House, which I think all of us have been trained on finding words, and they know the appropriate questions to ask the children. So that way you won't have a tainted investigation. Yes, and they do record it, and they do the medical exams, so we don't have to question them time and time again.
as one of the interviewers for the Crescent House, I just wanted to add to that, because we have a diverse audience here today, so we may have people from school, all walks of businesses, and so it is hard if a child were to say something to you, not to ask and to try to get more information, and I think my other interviewers, or if there are other interviewers in the room, can speak to this. We have had multiple times children not want to tell us because by the time they've gotten there, they've told this person, they've told this person, they've told this person. And if you think about it, having to tell that story over and over and over again just, can re-traumatize that child over and over again. So we understand that some of the agencies and some of the people have to get, just the basic information, but don't ever go into detail with a child, about, tell me this, or was it your daddy, or was it this person, because again, like Cynthia said, it can taint that interview, and it can be leading, and and those are some of the pitfalls we face. So.
I was just wondering, y'all are such a specialized unit. Do y'all have to go through specialized training about dealing with children? Do y'all get that kind of training?
We do. It's mandatory by the state that we receive so many hours, and also our department adds another 20 hours onto that mandated training. So at least 2 to 3 times a year, we're taking some type of child abuse or child death investigation classes.
If you wanted to do written questions as well, just flag me down and I'll come if you don't want the microphone in front of you.
We pretty much go through every second and fourth Friday of the month, which is twice a month that we meet. And we go through all the cases that we have went through the Crescent House on, that's done interviews or whatever for us. We go through all them cases that's between that time period. And sometimes if we haven't come to a conclusion on a case, it'll get held over till the next meeting. But we do try to go over all of them every time.
I sat or attended the workshop this morning on commercial sexual exploitation of children, and Macon was one of the hubs. They kind of showed us how the trafficking works, where a pimp will, kind of make the circle around the state from major urban centers. Do you guys see those cases of child victims who were in the commercial sexual exploitation stuff?
Now, once we've consolidated for this year, I haven't seen a whole lot of them. I know in the past we've had a ring that we have investigated prior, but most of the time we do get with the GBI, or since they're more funded than we are, they handle a lot of those cases for us.
I'm gonna put Beth on the spot here. We have some new initiatives that have to deal with commercially sexually exploited children that y'all might be interested in. Beth can tell you about Hope's Haven. Is that correct?
Hello, on the spot. Kind of, I guess, sort of along with what he was saying. Hope Haven will be a human trafficking advocacy center in Macon. It'll provide eventually residential care for CSEC victims in the area. It is in partner with GBI and FBI, is mainly the law enforcement as well that we will be working with. And it will be for CSEC victims to come and have an initial assessment and intake procedure done within a 72-hour time frame before finding their longer CSEC placement. So there's just a little bit about that.
As a school nurse, I'm not sure of the process with the Crescent House usually if a child would come to me or the counselor, since we're not in school full time, if something's been identified with either the nurses or the counselor, they usually contact the school social worker or defects, if it's already given defects, if the defects is involved. Who can actually take a child to the Crescent House? Who can make that referral?
So the question is, you're one of the school nurses, I remember you, and that your question was, if a child comes to you and discloses, who can actually take them from the school to the Crescent
If
House?
all that needs to be
Done.
quickly, and, then the parent gets involved, parent says nothing's going on, all this process, and we feel pretty sure something is going on. Especially, I have a child who has been in 5 different school systems just this school year. And it's a very suspicious case that mama may be running from county to county, because she's been investigated in one county, so now she's
Moving to the other
county
one? Yes.
hopping. And so I just need to know that process of how to get them help with the
Okay.
Normally, if the child hadn't disclosed, or if they have disclosed and told you just a tad bit of information, then defects will normally contact law enforcement, and we'll come and we'll contact the parent, and we won't ask them, we'll just advise them that we'll be taking the child to the Crescent House for an interview or an exam, whatever is necessary.
What the family does, obviously we find something, what happens to the child then? You fix the date with the parent and decide, so in fact, takes over.
It just depends on what the allegation was. I mean, if it was sexual abuse and it was maybe like the mom's boyfriend, then defects will be called in. They'll do a safety plan. The boyfriend will not be allowed to stay in the home with the child. And if, sometimes if the mom says, well, this is his house or whatever, very, very seldom is a child taken from the parent unless there's just no other place for the child to go.
So the main thing is, in what you're saying, is that child will be safe. The main, we don't want to have that child go back into the same situation. So once we have done everything, the investigation, the medical, the forensic, it's all about making sure that child has a safe place to go home to. That's key.
Somebody would come right to my office?
If a mandated
No, I'm not in the school.
if a mandated reporter called and they contacted defects, then defects would contact law enforcement, and then we would come to wherever you're at to meet with the child and the defects caseworker.
And I think the key is immediate danger. What kind of immediate danger is that child in, and determine what their response would be. So, I mean, if you got a child in your office, forget the
I was told I have to have the mic for the cameras. If if a child is in immediate danger, say, a scenario, maybe a child, if you're a counselor or something like that, a parent brought this child, the child discloses to you that this parent has done something to you, and you are not comfortable releasing that child to that family, of course, you have a responsibility to call law enforcement right away and get law enforcement right out there and start that process, and then they can protect that child. Does that help? Is that kind of what you were asking, or?
Yes, in many ways, but also, if the child is with me and the parent isn't, do I need to say something to the parent first? Do I call enforcement first? What is the process there?
Well, we would, again, it depends on the situation, but say the child is there, and say the parent is one of the perpetrators or something.
No, the non-offending perpetrator.
The non-offending?
Yes.
Then, yes, you can contact them, and we would still come out there to meet with them because we would want to talk to them as well.
So you would be here immediately?
Again, it depends on the situation. where, say, you have if the perpetrator's in the home, that child's in immediate danger, then yes, we can't let that child go back in danger. We need to get something set in place to where either the perpetrator's not going to be back in the home or either the child's going to have to be removed out of the home. It just depends on the situation itself. Now, if, say, the child's not in any immediate danger, the perpetrator lives, wherever else, he won't be around the perpetrator, so forth and so on, then that's when the report would be made. It would be passed up to us, and then we would be contacting you and the family to get statements and things like that and to set up a Crescent House and get the interviews done.
Okay, thank you.
The guiding priority there, as Sandra mentioned and as the officer mentioned, is child safety. So that's why, and that goes to my remarks about the intake. That's why it's critical. We have maybe don't just get a piece of paper from you, but we have a discussion with you, because as we learned at our lunchtime presentation, even a non-offending parent can present some issues that might be a bad situation for the child. So each case is different. You may have a parent that's very protective and saying, lock that bastard up, I don't want him to, or you might have somebody who, more typically, somebody who's just as much traumatized and in shock and everything else. So one of the roles that DFACS plays is to assess safety, and when a child discloses sexual abuse, that's going to bring in a criminal aspect, which we would immediately coordinate with and collaborate with law enforcement. But again, child safety dictates everything, and that's why we need to talk to you about what's going on in every case.
And this is just not, we're just not talking about sexual abuse cases. We're also talking about physical abuse cases as well. Crescent House also sees children who, have made allegations of physical abuse, and our team has gotten those reports and brought a child to you. Or say you're a teacher or the school nurse and you notice, marks that are not consistent with what a child is telling you has happened or anything like that. So, but like we're saying, it's, it's the guiding factor is the child's safety. So, and you can always, call law enforcement and get that team in place immediately if there's an immediate danger to the child. Yeah, and that is communicating that to the people that you're talking to. And like Bob said, there's always somebody you can talk to with DFACS, and then there's always law enforcement that can be called immediately.
From a clinical setting, like if you have a patient that is suspected abuse and you get them alone without the abuser in the room, which is sometimes hard, and they confide in you and you call DFACS, but it's the weekend, so DFACS isn't going to do anything. They're not going to do anything until Monday. And you can sit there and you can say, we're going to have to release them today, and if we release them today, then they're going to go into that home. But is there a way that we can get around that? Is there somebody else that we can contact? Because I know DFACS has to go through the sheriff's office, who has to go through this, who has to go through this. I know it's a long process, but in cases like that, is there a way to bypass it? Is there a way? Because I know, I've seen a couple cases to where they'll wait till Monday and they'll just do a home visit. And you don't know what's going to happen between, Saturday to Monday. You don't know.
And so that's the main thing I think we're trying to say is expressing your concern about the safety of that child. And DFACS does work on weekends. I just want to put that out there. But it's about the safety. If that child, if DFACS comes and your report that, okay, this child is going to be safe, is going to be with this supportive, non-offending caregiver, the perpetrator lives somewhere else and is not going to have contact, then those cases like that can wait. And if anything changes with that, and then that's when we would call law enforcement if something happens in that time frame. But as far, and I think my whole pushing and wanted to ask that question is what I think a misconception is that DFACS isn't going to do anything if I call or whatever, but is telling them the right information. When I do medical evaluations and I'm really worried, I tell them I am worried about this kid. I will not let this kid come home with whoever. Somebody needs to come and see this kid. And if you express that I think helps a lot. And they do come when you express that you are really worried.
Yeah, just again, the call center, since that's what I was asked to talk about, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's open. They'll talk to somebody, you give a report. If there's an immediate response warranted, they will contact Bibb County, Jones County, Putnam County. They have a worker on call who will respond immediately. And most of the time, if it's that urgent, probably they're going to be calling their partners in law enforcement and going out to the house.
Or sometimes I had them come to my office, and I hold them hostage. I'll tell you that because I'm worried about safety. But the detectives will come to the office, and if there is a concern about safety.
If a child discloses, is it automatically mandated that a medical exam is performed for both sexual and physical? Like, if a child discloses sexual abuse, is there going to be a medical exam performed automatically?
You know, that's one of those things. If a medical exam is going to be performed, because obviously, you know, there's evidence. There could be evidence of the crime that needs to be examined immediately. Generally, on something like that, we'll contact the Crescent House because we have a good working relationship with other agencies as far as DFACS and the Crescent House through the medical center. We'll get in contact with Dr. Head, and she'll make the determination if she can examine the child, or we'll make arrangements for the child to be examined as soon as possible.
And does that go for physical also?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it. Thanks, Chris. Okay. No, it is not mandated. The American Academy of Pediatrics strongly suggests that all victims of sexual abuse need to be examined, because just like Ms. LeBlanc said in our keynote, is that it's not just about all the time about the evidence. Sometimes it's just the fact that I can tell a child that you're normal. Nobody can look at you and tell things that happen to you. We're happy that you're healthy, and that helps with the emotional well-being as well. So we always encourage it. We're always willing to offer it, but it's not mandated. But it helps with a lot of other things besides evidence.
I have a question. Vernona Mosley again from Hepzibah Children's Homes. I'm sorry to have so many questions, but I've got questions. Around the state of Georgia, juvenile judges have established what they call citizens review panels. These people come from all walks of life and experience. They have to receive training. They have to sign confidentiality waivers, and then they are assigned to a panel, and they review the DFACS plan, the CASA plan, the guardian ad litem plan, and also the plan for the parents, and they talk to the children. It seems like this is a new concept to me, and do you have any plans of adding that volunteer component to your group so that you would have an extra set of eyes to have input from experienced professionals that are trained, so that you can have that volunteer extra help? And if you don't know that answer, that's okay too.
We've worked with those agencies. I mean, the guardian ad litems and, you know, people from CASA. I mean, we've worked with those agencies in certain cases. It's all a case-by-case basis. They're not a permanent member of our MDT team, but obviously if they have information or something in reference to a case that can help us with our investigation, obviously we'd like to talk to them, and they would be involved in that. But we try to reach out. You know, our main objective is, you know, we're a law enforcement agency, but we work hand in hand with DFACS and with all these other agencies that are put in place, because our main objective is the safety of the children and to make sure that we can stop the abuse and you know, educate people. So that's our main role. So we're all working for the same purpose.
Going back to the last question, whose decision is it for a child to get the medical examination? Is it the deputies or is it Dr. Heads? Who makes that decision?
Well, in the cases that I've had, depending on the situation and how long ago the abuse occurred and whatnot, I discuss it with members of the Crescent House. I think Julie is the one that actually does the exams. And when we go over it, sometimes they get with Dr. Head about it, and based on what we all come up with, what they tell me, we go on from there and decide whether or not it's necessary for the child to have a medical exam or not.
Do you want to ask? Okay. No, 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 you want to
Okay. So as far, and I'll piggyback on about medical exams, it all depends on the case. It all depends on the disclosure. For the most part, we try to do medical exams on everything, but sometimes we'll have victims that come and they may be witnesses and nothing happened, but they saw what happened to their sibling. So if we don't have any disclosure of everything, we might not do a medical evaluation of that child. So it just depends on the different cases. As far as medical evaluations, just saying that, and I know Ms. LeBlanc talked about medical evaluations, it's very non-invasive. It's basically looking at the child from head to toe. Depending on the disclosure, we'll do STD testing to make sure that they're safe. And then a part of it is just sitting down and talking about what has happened, how feelings, having the child to be able to even have a chance to say if there's other things that they didn't say in the forensic interview, because like Ms. LeBlanc says, they think when I look down there that I'm gonna see something all the time. So they're, even if they don't want to do, a lot of times they don't want to do it because they think I'm gonna see something anyway. But a lot of times just with that fact, I might get more disclosure from different things, because the doctor can look down there, even if I'm recanting or taking back what I said, she's going to know. So it's a lot of different dynamics when it comes to the medical evaluation, but it's very non-invasive. And if I have a child that says, absolutely not, Dr. Head, I don't want you to do it, I won't do it, because I think that's added trauma to that child. And there's some ways we can kind of sneak and see if we can do things, but sometimes if it's adamant, it's going to be traumatizing, we will not do it to them.
What is that time frame, just the average time frame when law enforcement says, okay, we need to get them in the Crescent house? What is the average wait time for that kid actually get in for that assessment?
Well, normally once we get the initial report, we go ahead and make it ASAP. And when we make contact with the complainant, or use the parent and the victim that day, I'll usually go ahead and call that same day, and they just go over their schedule and try to get them in as soon as possible. So it's normally, most of the time for me, it's within that same week. Depending on if it's like an emergency situation or something that just occurred, they'll go ahead and do it like right then that same day. We'll try to get them in that same day, even if they have to try to push some other stuff around. So it's usually pretty quick.
Yes. So the ladies from the Crescent House just want to let you know, it also depends on the acuteness of the case or the chronicity of the case. Something that happened 3 years ago won't get as quick as a slot as something that just happened right then, it happened today, and the law enforcement know that they can call me, I'll stop whatever and try to sneak around and do that exam. So it also depends on that, but we try to see everybody. And then you said something, Tracy?
Well, I know Shayla had asked about, like, do you do a medical on every child? Well, some children that come to us have already had medicals in other places.
Yes. So sometimes, like if it's an acute case and it's nowhere near here, they may go to the ER, and that emergency physician or that same nurse has already done the exam. So we would be the follow-up, just to make sure that, there's no STDs, make sure there's no pregnancy, and make sure that everything there are injuries. So sometimes we might not do exam right then because it's already been done, and there's no need for me to do it again, repeat it again if it's already been done.
Hi, there are several of us here, quite a few of us nursing students here who are about to enter the healthcare work field. And I was just wondering, we're new to the whole area of child abuse, and is there anything that the law enforcement officials could, tips or whatever that could give us in order to help you with your investigation? What's the most important thing that we should remember as we enter the work field?
I guess for me, it would be whatever the child says initially when they come into the ER or wherever, those first utterance are very important because sometimes, depending on the situation, they will change their stories. So it's very important to write down what they tell you initially.